Bald and blonde. Welcome to the Mindset Evolution podcast. The podcast to get tools for a powerful mind you can use immediately every day. Get tips, tricks, skills, and inspiration to create what you desire and achieve a content life wherever you are. And here are your hosts, Kathi and Daisy Pup.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution, the podcast that gives you tools for a powerful mind. I'm Kathi Tate, your host from Down Under. With me, as always, is Daisy Pup, your host from Up Above. Hi, Daisy.
Hi, my dear friend. Good to see you and good to know that you're going to throw another topic into our episode list. And so let's record that. I'm so grateful for having so many listeners. That shows us that we serve humans from around the world, cross-culture, cross-border, cross-age, cross-gender. And I'm so grateful for that. And please continue supporting us because listeners like you make it possible to stay on air. Thank you.
Yes, it's quite amazing to wake up and realize that we've added not just another country or two or four this week to the list, but that I can see in our stats that the listeners inside each of the countries are also growing. So it's super exciting. We're starting to feel the snowball effect. So yes, please keep sharing our episodes with everybody you come across if you feel you've got some value. And I think that there is value in each and every episode for everybody out there if you're looking for it. And on that note, I've got a really great episode today I think will benefit loads of people all around the world, Daisy.
What is it?
Letting go.
Okay. Well, that's a big one.
It is a big one. And it's something I think that all of us have to do at some point, somewhere, in some situation during our lives. You'd be lucky to have escaped this. And if you haven't, then maybe it's time you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, letting go. I think there's a good image that we can all imagine or visualize. Let's say I'm carrying a bucket that's quite heavy with both hands. And I'm carrying that bucket and it's heavy and it's big. So my hands are occupied. And let's say you walk there towards me and you want to give me, let's say, a bouquet of flowers or a planted orchid. How can I take it from you? Because you bring me that as a gift when my hands are still filled and I'm still holding on to that heavy bucket.
Oh, this reminds me of our episode we called The Resentment Bucket.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. That's a stretch, but I agree with you. Yes, it could be the resentment bucket too, but it can be any other bucket. Let's say I'm holding on to my job, not because I don't have another opportunity, but because and I'm going to show them that it's possible that they can change and I'm going to change the entire infrastructure of this company and I stay until I succeed. Okay. Now, when is the point in time where it's maybe a wise idea and healthy to let go of that idea? Because sometimes we hold on to ideas even, so it must not be something physical necessarily. It can be something in my mind, the idea of, or the illusion of, or I'm still grieving and I'm not letting go of that grief because I then may feel them, those who passed over or passed away or just moved away or out of my life, they still feel closer to me while I'm holding on to them.
Right. Yes, I can see that. I was going to say perhaps it's very linked to a need for control and then you dropped the grief one in there and that's a little bit different again. But I think perhaps a lot of it is about control, which is possibly coming from fear. And we have that control mechanism to try and stop the fear. But then what we're doing is we're keeping ourselves in a situation that isn't the best for us. And therefore, the letting go would release yourself from these, whatever situation it is. Am I on the right path there? I'm just talking on the fly.
Well, I'm not sure if it is right or not. I think you have a good point there that it has to do with control. Because if I would trust the flow of life, when I have that faith that life is for me, and I'm not talking about a religious faith, but that certainty or that belief system or that strong belief that life is for me and not against me. When I believe this cup, my favorite coffee cup with the bald and blonde logo on it, and it's red inside and white outside. So I really, really like this cup, and I hold on to it, of course, because I don't want to spill the coffee in there. That makes sense. But if I keep holding on to it, then how will I be able to, let's say later on, eat lunch with a fork and a knife? Becomes impossible. So when I believe that, okay, I love this cup, let's say it breaks, because cup accidents happen all over the world. They fall or they fall over or they break while we are moving physically, households. These little incidents may happen. So when I hold on to it, that also shows me that I'm so fearful that I will never, ever have another cup, especially like this or any other cup. Now, that might be realistic because this particular cup was made exactly one time. There can be copycats around and you may send me another one. Let's say if you know that I break it, and I'm certain that you would because you know how much I like it and I appreciate that already in advance. Nevertheless, it will never, ever be exactly the same cup. Because with this, I traveled with this. I had house guests here. They were allowed to use it because they wanted to. They wanted to drink out of the bald and blonde cup. They could have chosen any other cup. No, they wanted this one. So I have memories attached to it. But when I'm holding on to it, I am also fearful that there won't be any other experience, maybe not with a cup, but maybe with a keychain or maybe with a piece of clothing or maybe with another human or maybe with the sunlight just flickering on the ocean. So I am depriving myself while I'm holding on stubbornly to something from all other experiences that may bring good and joy into my life.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. And I think that we really do need to also look at this in context of relationships. Now, I know this and I want to talk about this because I've been through it myself with my ex-husband. And it was very hard to let go of him and our marriage because I was very in love with him, even though our relationship, and I'm not going to blame it on him, our relationship was very toxic. It had great moments and there was a lot of love there, but there was also a lot of toxicity. Mm-hmm. And I know from that experience that it can be difficult to extricate yourself from a cycle that becomes normal.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we need to talk about it because I know that there are going to be listeners out there who are either in this cycle or going to go through the cycle, and this might help them recognize it and learn to let go.
Well, it takes two. When there's two people in the relationship, then it takes two. And you have a point, and I'm certain that many of our listeners are going through that or can relate to it because they have gone successfully through it and went out of it. So they successfully exited. And then there are some who may enter a relationship right now where there will be a future event where the exit may be a challenge. Now, rationally, when we have, let's say, a toximeter, so measuring the toxicity in a relationship, rationally, most people know that this is no good. Emotionally, though, it feels, oh, but I cannot let go. Now, that shows me that the rational realization is not enough. So when I try to control you, Kathi, let's take our podcast as an example. You are the best ever podcast partner I could have ever envisioned. I mean, you're tenfold better or a millionfold better than limited thinking wise believed to find or be found by. I give it you. Yes, it's yours. You found me. Yes. Now, let's say for some technical reason, we are not able to continue. Or let's say we cannot continue because we don't have the funds to produce this podcast. And let's say we just cannot continue doing this podcast. When I now hold on to you, that limits me from all future experiences to maybe be able to speak to other great humans who I can also have great conversations with. Maybe not exactly the same because no one is you. No one can be you. There may be people, they look similar to you, but they will never be you. Maybe they have what you have, but they can never be you. So when I hold on, no, I only do podcasts with Kathi. I'm not only depriving myself from podcasting in this example, but I'm also depriving life itself with all the opportunity that it throws or delivers my way, because I want to hold on to you and you only, and I don't care what else is out there.
Yes, and that's a good example, but you were going to talk about rationality versus emotional.
Okay. Now, when I rationally now know, let's say, I'd like to speak with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I will one day. So anyone out there who hears me, please bring us together and you get a huge, lovely thank you from me when you make that happen. Or if Joe, please, when you listen to this, come and contact us at ask@baldandblonde.life and I'll get back to you immediately. I promise. So when I hold on to you, rationally, I know that, okay, there's a Joe Dispenza out there and there are other great leaders in neuroscience and scientists I'd like to speak with. And when I know that, but I don't want them. I don't want to talk to them. No, because I only want you. Why? It could be because I don't want you to talk to anyone else but me. You see the twist here? And that is very dangerous and unhealthy. Dangerous, why? Because it's hurting people. It's hurting. So when I want you and you exclusively, and I believe that there will never ever be a good match as you and I are, which may be the case. But let's face it, it's almost 8 billion people on this planet. And I do believe rationally, intellectually, that there might be another good match for me. And there also vice versa might be another good match for you. So intellectually, I know there are other people I can talk to, but I hold on to you. That's where the control comes in. I'm trying to control the uncontrollable. Now, that's like me trying to win a fight with my own shadow. I can't. Shadow fighting doesn't work, people. So when I understand, let me go further with our example. Let's say for some reason, Kathi, you say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of this microphone. The headphone is itching and I'm done with podcasting for the next decade or maybe for the next lifespan of mine or maybe for the rest of my life. When I now try to convince you, no, you can't do that. I built this podcast with you and you cannot exit. Who am I then? What does it say about me if I don't let you go? Or let's say you and I, we come to a point in life where you and I disagree. It's possible. Sometimes we do disagree, but we still continue doing the podcast. But let's say I change my mind and maybe you change your mind and we are just in a totally non-agreeable situation and the edge is so hard and harsh that there is no future together. I cannot imagine, I cannot envision that anything like that can happen because we're both very good communicators and very well aware of our own emotional backpack. But let's say that would happen. Why would I want, let's say you quit. Why would I want to hold on to you when you want to get out? Why? So why would I want to do podcasts with you when you don't want to do podcasts with me? Why? It does not make sense on any level. Not mental level, not physical level, not psychological level, not on an emotional level. Zero, none. So emotionally, I may feel this is the biggest loss of my life. And it may be true. Now, the key is when I don't let go, I cannot grow and evolve when I hold on to, well, but this is the only podcaster I can possibly imagine doing podcasts and continuing podcasts and my life is worthless without you. No, I put myself in a very disadvantageous spot, don't I?
Very dramatic.
Yes, but there are people out there, they believe that.
Yes.
Now, the more I try holding on to you, and let's say I even throw in some emotional pokes in there and I say, but Kathi, you promised that we will never part. You promised when you found me that you will continue podcasting until we pass away, until our life is over. I'm doing it on purpose because most likely our listeners out there know someone or know someone who is dramatic just as such.
Well, I have to throw in here that if you took marriage vows, that is what you vow traditionally,
yes,
till death do you part. I believed that when I took those vows. So It's not a stretch to think that somebody would say, but you promised. And I get that. I do.
Yes.
I don't think that it's necessarily overly dramatic. It's contextual,
Yes.
isn't it?
Well, I dramatize it here in our context. I didn't speak about marriage.
Yes.
You brought it in.
Sure.
And let's speak about marriage in a moment. I get back there.
Yes.
When I now emotionally poke you, I call it emotional poking. I don't want to call it more dramatic as it already is. And I say, yes, but you promised. Now it depends on how you handle it. When you now come back to me and say, yes, but Daisy, I cannot continue because you're too blonde all of a sudden. I'm just making all this up, dear listeners. But I always was blonde, Kathi. Why is it a problem now? Well, you changed your mind. But until you don't tell me without justification, Daisy, yes, back then that was the greatest idea. And I really enjoyed you being my blonde partner. And now I no longer enjoy that. And there's nothing you can do. So stop trying to convince me to stay.
Isn't that, though, giving a rational reason to an emotional problem?
Okay, good point. Let's say you respond to me emotionally and you say, yes, Daisy, but I don't love you being blonde anymore. Now, this is on the emotional level. How is that going to bring us forward? One of us needs to remain on a rational, intellectual basis because on the emotional basis, we cannot solve it yet. Why? Because let's say I'm totally in love with our podcasting, which I am to a degree, not romantically, but I really love what we are doing. And I love doing it with you. But on an emotional level, we will not be able to solve it at this point in time. When you remain rational and say, yes, Daisy, look, I promise we do that and we end only when we both agree to ending it in the future. And I changed my mind. And I wonder if you can respect and accept my decision.
I feel like there's going to be a point here where that's not always going to end well. So giving a rational response to an emotional issue relies on the emotional person then coming out of that and understanding the logic.
I agree with you. But when I know, let's say I have a wooden sculpture and by accident I put it on the pile of the firewood and it burned. How can I now with fire bring back my wooden sculpture?
No.
There you go. So when you now try emotionally to stop me from wanting to continue podcasting with you, it doesn't work. One of the two parties must be a clear thinker and must make up their mind.
I see what you're saying, but I don't think that's always going to work either because one of the parties may, not necessarily always, but may stay stuck in that emotional state. And it may be that one of the parties is going to have to say, I can't do anything about that and let go anyway. We're not always going to have an agreement.
But that's my key.
And in fact...
Exactly. So now...
Boom.
Yeah, so when I tell you, let's turn it around and let's say you want to continue podcasting with me because I'm the one and only in your life to podcast because I'm your vision and the idea fix. So like the fixed idea, there's Daisy and no one else in your universe when it comes to podcasting. And let's say I want out for whatever reason, because I'm sick and tired of the headphones and I'm sick and tired of the microphone and I want to go on a sailboat. No Wi-Fi, no satellite, nothing, nada, for a year. I know of people who do that, and I know my uncle did it for 5 years. So when I made up my mind, and I now stand and stick to the standard, my art of standing in life, and also my art of walking in life, when I say, Kathi, I truly appreciate, thank you, but I'm over it, then I must take the consequence and I must take the next steps. And no matter how hysterical or how often you call me or how many emails you send me, when I made up my mind, I made up my mind.
Yeah.
And I have my reasons. Now, I must know my reasons. I must be clear here in my thinking and my thoughts support how I feel and how I feel support which actions I'm going to take. So it's that triangle. Thoughts influence our feelings. Feelings determine how we act and behave. And now that behavior supports the thinking. Now, the same way goes the other way around. It's like the spiral. We are in that spiral, in that circle of life, we could call it. And we either go upwards or downwards. It's like an elevator. It goes up or down, period.
What was it again?
Thoughts, feelings, and feelings influence your behavior and your actions.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to change your thoughts because we have 70,000 of them on a daily basis. The average human has 70,000 thoughts a day. Not easy to let them go, but when you notice that, they pass me by and I can choose which one I want to stick with and think more often over longer and longer and longer periods of time, that will make change how I feel. When I feel differently, I will be able to take different actions. Now, when I feel that I cannot possibly let go of that thought, because there are people out there, they have this, I call it the idea fix, the fixed idea. That's the one and only. They cannot let go of it. Then change your physiology. Get up, do jumping jacks, do sit downs, do push-ups, go for a walk, start dancing, but change the way you sit, you stand, you lay, change your physical being, your position. That's the first and the easiest one to get out. Because in order to continue thinking the same thoughts, we must do something correctly. In order to hold on stubbornly to something, we must do something correctly. We must have the matching thoughts that support or produce specific emotions in our body, right? Energy and motion that make us feel a certain way. And then based on that, we behave or act. Now, look, dear listeners from around the world, when you feel that you have challenges letting go of something that is no good, and you solely focus with a magnifying glass on the good things and have the tendency to ignore the bad, please go and as soon as possible seek professional help. There is a reason why you're in that. That can be losses from generations. It can be inherited. Must not necessarily be your own fear. Science has proof of it, that trauma can be inherited to 14 generations. Well, 7 years ago, they only knew about 7 generations. Now it's 14, 7 years later. So I have a feeling that it goes further back into our ancestry. When you have difficulty to letting go, get help. If you're not that challenged to letting go, then just realize, why would you want to hold on to something that does not want to hold on to you when it comes to a human? Now, when it comes to people who have a lot more things than they actually need, and I'm one of them. I am very minimalist, so I have reduced, especially after Hurricane Irma, which was a natural reduction event in my life because I lost physically almost everything. Nevertheless, do I still have books that I may not need because I don't need them every day, but it's nice to have them? Absolutely, yes. Do I have maybe more plates than I actually need? Yes. Do I maybe have kept some shoes that are good for only one particular thing when I go hiking? Yes, I kept them. But maybe I'm invited to go hiking and then I will want to have them. So really, let's take an inventory. How much stuff are we holding on to? All of us do. I know one crypto trader who does not. He travels the world with a carry-on luggage. He goes from place to place. Whatever he needs there, he buys. And he leaves it there for the people, either for the rental places that he rented or in the hotel, or he donates that to people who are in need. That's what he's doing. He has no furniture. He has his computer. He has some hard drives, externals, and he has his clouds. And he has some favorite pairs of shoes. And then that's it. He's traveling light. That's all he physically owns.
Yes, I can say from experience that doing the stuff purge, as I call it,
never heard of it,
is actually a real release, because we do tend to accumulate physical things, perhaps in a search for security and comfort.
Yes.
And what I learned by purging the stuff was that I could find that security and comfort within myself, and I didn't need a house or a blanket or a car or any of those physical things that we do tend to gather around us. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having them. I'm just saying that the experience of going without, of getting rid of almost all of it, was quite freeing, and it made me learn some things about myself that were really great lessons.
Yeah.
And sure, I have stuff again, but nowhere near as much as I did have.
Yeah.
I used to carry my books, 3 bookshelves worth, every time I moved. Now, I've moved around Australia 7 times, folks. And Australia is pretty much the size of America, just with less people. And the distances that we travel to move are quite substantial.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know kilometres, but the Western Australian state where I live now, from where I used to live, it's about 2,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
And that's the smallest move that I've done. And so I've moved these books literally around the country, probably 3 or 4 times, and only just got rid of them recently, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when I decided to move to New Zealand. I purged almost everything I owned. And it was great in a way to be free of all those things. It was tough to come back. And I sold a lot of them to my best friend's husband, and he still has them. And I go to their house and I go, oh, my books. You've got my books. But I let go of it, and it was a great feeling. So I want everyone to know that on the other side of this letting go is a real freedom that you will find if you can summon up, I don't want to say courage because I don't know if that's the right word, but summon up the belief that it's going to be okay. There is a flow to life. You can trust it. And you'll find that once you do put that trust in it, things are going to flow.
Yeah.
And a very special friend of mine who lives on the other side of the country learnt this in the last few months. He used to have this belief that things would always go wrong, because that's what he'd experienced. And he started to change his mind about that and the way he thought about that while he was friends with me. And he said that has changed so much of his life. Things now seem to be going right more often. He's got more opportunities. He's meeting nicer people. And it can have these effects, whether we realize it or not. I promise you they're there.
Well, when we feel, though, and our emotional state screams that's not true, then it's not like a light switch. Okay, now I trust that there's relief on the other side of it. That doesn't work like that. When they are linked together, the thought of letting go and, oh my God, it feels horrible. And maybe you have your stomach crunching and you get shaky hands and maybe you get a sweaty forehead or you start stuttering or you just lose your mind and you forget things and you bump into furniture. So that shows me that there's a strong link. It must be looked at and must be somewhat healed inside of us emotionally. Because otherwise it will not be beneficial for the one who faces letting go. Look, let's go back a few generations. Back then, it was much more challenging to collect books, furniture, screws, tools, kitchen utensils. It was not like that you go online and you have it delivered the next day. Maybe there was one pot and it was almost the household's biggest treasure because it came down from my great-grandmother and we hold on to it because everyone ate from that pot and now we continue eating from that pot. And we carry that within ourselves. And for example, my grandparents on my father's side, they got married very young and they died together, literally, in the same car accident. They were a few weeks apart because my grandfather was in coma for a couple of weeks, but they died together. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone experiences that, and it's not that everyone finds the compatible partner at a young age. And before you choose a partner, I think that is where we can make a great impact by choosing a partner wisely. Partners anyways change over time within a relationship. They grow and evolve. Or in some relationships, only one grows and evolves. And the other remains where they're at, and then somehow they grow apart. But when you choose wisely, then you reduce the chances that there will be glitches and that there will be problems of letting go or holding on when you want to let go and the other doesn't. So that's the first step where you can almost determine a future of a relationship or the disaster of a relationship. The Gottman Institute, Gottman Institute, they rented hotel rooms and allowed a couple to go in there for 15 minutes, and they were able to say if the relationship is going to last or they will get a divorce within the next couple of years, 5 years or 7 years. So there are signs there. There are signs. We are just so numbed to it that we don't notice. But this is not a relationship episode. This is the episode of letting go. So learn to let go. If you have difficulty letting go, go and seek help. Start reading about how it's possible to let go. Speak with people who were able to let go. How did they do it? There are specific methods that you can utilize. One of them is meridian tapping, and it's very simple. There are thousands, if not 10,000 of videos that you can find online how to tap. And all you do is let go, let go, let go, let go. Why is that a good thing? Because it stimulates the organs related to the acupuncture points that are on the meridian of specific organs, and you will feel differently because the emotion, energy in motion is disconnected. You will not be able to look at the same picture and have the same emotions anymore. There are hundreds of studies out there, thousands of papers. So this is science. I'm not making this up. And I think it is an attitude. Letting go is an attitude. When you feel that, dear listeners, if there's someone out there who's not letting go, stick with your decision and determination that you will go anyways. If somebody's out there who has difficulty letting go, go and seek help. It is natural to let go. And I give you one very, very simple example that applies to all humans. I generalize all humans around the globe. Breath. Imagine I'm taking a breath now and I'm holding on to it. I never ever let it go because I know this is my breath. I'm not going to let it go. It's exhausting and it will kill me. It's so natural. I take a breath, I inhale and I exhale. That's nature. That's natural. So when you focus on your breath, breath connects you to life. I inhale and I let go. And there will be another breath for me if I'm lucky and don't die in between two breaths. Let's focus on that. That I think is a global remedy to remind ourselves that letting go is a natural thing. Just imagine I give you one other very visual example. I understand here in South Florida, we don't really have seasons because it's always warm most of the time. And we still have some plants and trees that have falling leaves due to the season. Imagine a tree holding on to these old leaves that dried off. How do you then look at them and how does it make sense to you? And why would a tree ever do that? They don't. If you have plants in your yard or in your home, is it not the case that you walk around and if there's a dead leaf that you pick it up, you take it away? Why do you do that? Well, the plant did let go. And if the plant is capable of doing so, then so can you.
I think that's a nice example of us being able to look to nature to guide us, and also a lovely way to wrap up this conversation. There is a lot more to it, but we can only say so much in one of our episodes. And today has been definitely an extended version. So thank you, Daisy, for your input. I think that is going to help a lot of people. And to reiterate, if you need help, reach out and get it. And if you so wish, Daisy's available for some sessions. So go to selfrecoding.com and you can find her there. That's it from us today. We'll see you next week with the final episode of season 6. We are Bald and Blonde.
Mindset Evolution. Talk to you next time. Thank you for listening in to the Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution podcast. Please share our podcast with your family and friends. Together, we make this world a better place. For you, for us, for future generations. Visit us at baldandblonde.live to get freebies, give feedback, and even support us with as little as $1. Talk to you soon.